Welcome everybody to our another episode of Coach Up, where we coaches talk about something important. And today we have back our amazing panelists, and you're welcome back, Irene and Derek. So thank you again for coming on our podcast again. And today we are going to talk about something very interesting, which is questioning. So we always begin all our podcasts with let's talk about what what you have said to us in our social media page. And last week we talked about we asked the question: when we reach a roadblock, what do we prefer people around us to do? A, just listen. B, tell me what to do. Or C, ask me a question so I can think. And interestingly, we have a split tie between just listening and asking me questions so what I can think. So I think, Derek, can you share with us what is your point of what do you feel about two different group of people saying two different things about this question?
Well, the great thing is that nobody went for tell me what to do. I suppose as a nation, we're quite fed up with that reality that everybody has an opinion, that, we're very quick to give people a solution. However, the reality is always that the best person for that solution is the person himself. And our work is to help that person to connect to their own solution. I think questioning is very powerful. It can help us. However, for this group of people who would say, just listen, I imagine that when they experience people asking them questions, these weren't very helpful questions. And I've always enjoyed when people ask great questions that help me to explore, that give some understanding. But there were a group of people who just asked really harsh questions sometimes, like I feel sad. Why? Why do you feel sad? And these kind of questions does not help. And therefore, it's not going to bring me to this place of like, well, can you ask me for more questions? I'd rather you just keep quiet and let me tell you what's happening. What do you think, Irene?
Yeah, that's very interesting from that point of view. I was thinking probably as human experience, all of us desire to be listened to first. And if given the choice between all those trees, probably they'll choose, okay, just listen to me first. And then we shall talk about what can we do after this? It's like a link to that. So it's kind of interesting. It's 50-50. Yeah, I'm seeing that people do desire to have their voice being heard, their concern being heard first, before they can start exploring what are the possibilities that they can move forward in.
Yes, I think it really, truly, I think encapsulates it. And most probably, maybe some people have never experienced people asking questions that are helping them to really reflect, whether it's just questions that, like what you all said, just random questions, or yes, break that thought pattern, asking like questions that, doesn't lead them to where they want to go, or, helpful questions. Because all of us always have so much things to ask. Like, oh, why are you doing this? There's so many these questions that kind of cut us or cut the person who is talking. Maybe they have felt that like whenever I say something, then they can't cut me off. Are you listening to me? Or are you just trying to dig up more questions? So it could be many opportunities. But I think in the area, what we are talking about more in the area of coaching. So I think let's go to like pretty much a little bit more detail on this podcast about more in the area of coaching. So I think what questions I want to ask is what is the questionings? How is questioning important in the area of coaching? I think let's talk about coaching side of like how does questions help all of us in the area of coaching? Irene?
For me, questioning why is it important and is helpful in the context of coaching is that personally, as a person, I love being asked questions. I love stimulation in my brain to think. And I see that as a tool of empowerment when a question is being asked. When someone is being asked a question, it just makes the person think about that. Yeah. And when that idea comes from that person themselves, they're more likely to own it. And that also promotes self-responsibility. And you're more excited to do the things that you came up with the idea with. And the coach is there, the role of the coach is there to empower that person, to celebrate with that person, and to affirm that person. Wow, those are great ideas that you have thought about. Let's give it a try. And let's see how it goes from there.
Mm.
When I look at questioning, I also see that it is a search. Every time we ask a question, we're searching for something. As people, well, beyond borders, I realize many of us need some help there. Are we asking good questions that help us to move forward? Or are we asking questions that just keeps us go round and round? And if we have been asking good questions, then your progress would be quite clear. But if we are not asking good questions, like beyond just like what I can learn from this, but really, questions that were very helpful was like, when I look at this situation, how many angles can I look at it? And then I get to choose which angle of looking at a certain situation helps me to process that well. And then comes the next question of like, what do I think I can do about that? Versus questions that are generally unhelpful would be fault-finding questions. How come I didn't get it right? What did I do wrong? It's okay to ask that, but if they are the only kind of questions that are being asked, we won't go very far. So in a way, if I ask negative questions, what I'm looking for is negativity, and I'm sure to find them because they are there. We're never 100% right in many cases. But if I learn to ask for growth and helpful questions, then I will see possibilities. And these are the things that I can respond to. So I think questioning is very powerful in coaching because it gives us some perspective. But another thing that I imagine we are serving the client very well is that sometimes when you are in a situation, you are so caught up with whatever that's happening, your search also becomes very confused. But as an outsider, being with that client, however, not so involved emotionally in that situation, we are able to look at things in a more objective point of view and then ask those questions that would help the person to see that if I would just take myself out of that situation, I might be able to look at it in a more neutral perspective and therefore find better answers for a lot of situations.
Very true, very true. I think also what we always look at as in coaching area of questioning is about helping at every stage, whether they are looking at goal setting that we talked about earlier, whether they're looking at different places, like looking at their situations, looking at what can they do next. I think the questions play a very important role, especially when the area of being like area of stuck, like I think that's for me my own personal journey of being coached and taking and even coaching other people. A lot of times we allow certain small obstacles to be that main focus on our minds, and until someone invites us to see like, okay, what can we do next, what's beyond this small obstacle, what are the options that we are available to us, that we begin to take that one step back and say, okay, let's look at a bigger perspective. For a while, sometimes emotions draws us to one particular area and go like, oh, I'm failing at this. I'm not doing well here. This is something that is stopping me from moving forward. And we just harbor on it and just focus on that. And that takes away our joy, takes away the capacity. And for me, I realized that that's what I think when Derek and you were coaching me before this, whenever you invite me to look at it, take a step back, look at a bigger picture, look at what can you do forward, how can you move forward in this area. I think that helps a lot by the questions that leads us towards a more positive outcome, like what you talked about, a positive outcome, like what can I do, rather than dwelling on that situation that we are in, but moving forward. Are you thriving, right? moving and getting forward much more is important. Yes,
Mm.
very much. So true, so true.
Yeah, it's very interesting that previously I hear from you, Justin, when you were mentioning, it's like, oh, why are things like that? So one of the things that we've been taught is that when we ask question to our client, it's very important not to trigger a defense, because that tends to close things up for people, right? And this is where it is very effective. As trained coaches, we do ask questions that open things up. It's open-ended question that also sparks up creativity and in the other person. As the client gets creative, their mind relaxes more and they sees more possibilities. And I see that is such a blessing, like seeing breakthrough right in front of your eyes. It's like, wow, just the next session, just one question. Okay, would you like to go home and think about this thing? You've come up with this solution, and let's talk next week. Let's follow up. And you just see that person being like coming in much happier. Wow, it's just awesome. I see that really empowering and very powerful.
Yeah, I agree, totally agree. So I think now let's talk about how can we start asking good questions as coaches, as people around us. How can we start beginning to help people in the area of questioning? Derek, you want to take this one first?
Sure. There needs to be a roadmap for us as coaches when we ask questions. Talking about it from a negative point of view, when I'm trying to train new coaches or new accompanier, they want to help the other person to grow. And when they ask questions, they just go round and round and round, just out of curiosity and asking and asking. We would just open up a box and make it bigger, and that's not going anywhere. And very often it's like people don't really have a roadmap of how they want to end that session. So I have a roadmap, and the roadmap goes with the idea of the grow module. That first we want to look at their goals. Is this still the goal that they want to reach, that they want to achieve? Then we look at what is their reality, asking them questions to help them explain or explain and explore what's actually happening at this moment. Third group of questions will go towards the exploration of what is possible, looking at options. And I think this is very important. When people have only one possibility, then there is no options. That means there is no choice. So it's very powerful that we as coaches will help clients to look at different ways of dealing with things and then eventually make a choice and then make a plan. That will be step number 4. How they can now begin to see what they want and put it into context, looking at the possibilities and plan ahead.
It's such an amazing model, isn't it? The grow model. I like using that too. And I've seen that every time when it comes to questioning, coming from the abundance perspective, as I would call it, has been really helpful. And Derek mentioned a little bit about like good questioning and bad questioning, something that will make you like, I just don't want to answer. So that's what I see as like the abundance point of view kind of questioning. Even if the reality that the client is experiencing at that moment might not be very good, but it is empowering for them to actually just name it. This is what's happening to me. So this is right in front of me. I can see the picture clearer. And that step itself can also remove fear away from them. They can name the fear and put it in the right perspective, and then to find new courage forward. And the option part is always very amazing. If you just spell out your option and I'm just going to write it. And that a lot of times it's like, wow, I couldn't stop writing. Is there more? Like, it's so amazing, just so amazing. And to be able to bring them to, okay, now as you look at the options, what is the best, pick 3 best way forward, for example. Yeah. And it just gives them a better focus on the goal, and they have something to work on in a smaller steps, like breaking things into smaller steps. And breakthrough normally happens in that way. And that is just so powerful.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Derek?
I was going to say that this way of questioning is also very intuitive. We cannot go through a list of questions and ask them kind of like systematically. Humans are not always like this. So it really depends on the client. Maybe they want to spend more time talking about options. Perhaps today they need to spend more time reminding themselves of the goal that they want. And we need to be able to feel this as we are listening to the clients, to allow them to guide that conversation while we are ushering them into this direction. And if we come to this place of when the client is able to make a decision and say, okay, it's quite clear for the next few days, this is what I'm going to do, brilliant. But that's not always our task. It is the task of the client. And we want to see where they want to go and how far they want to move with this. The questioning is supposed to empower people. And I've had my own experiences that when people ask good questions, it really empowered me. I also realized that when someone understands me, the question they ask, it's in itself an understanding. Now, when people do not know what I was talking about, even the questions they ask, it's weird and it out of context. It's like, I don't think you even heard what I just said. And this is where, as coaches, we want to be very sensitive also and be very intuitive in the way we are listening and asking those questions.
Yeah, very true. I think I totally agree with that. I think I realize sometimes that when a coach asks its clients very good questions, it helps the client to then, whenever they are coming to a point of like standstill, stop, they remember the questions, how, that what question the coaches gave to them, and then they move forward. I think one of the areas that actually one of the greatest things is that when the clients are able themselves, to start beginning asking questions like how a coach would ask them, so and yeah, they just continue moving forward. I remember this situation where I was speaking to one of my clients, and I was sharing to me, oh, Justin, I came from here to here, and I just moving forward, and I asked him, oh, okay, how do you come to that point, like what made you come to that point and say, oh, I just thought, what would Justin ask me to say? What would Justin ask me to do? And I think that's what he did. He just continued on. And I think that's something where clients can come to a point where they don't depend on coaches only. They are able to do it for themselves. And what more, they themselves begin to do it for other friends. And so that they learn something. I think powerful questions in general can actually help a lot of people. When someone asks a question that is very intuitive, the question that is very much on point, like what Derry should share about, asking a question that actually listens to that person. I think what happens is that people begin to like just open their eyes and say, wow, I didn't think of it this way. I never thought about looking at asking this question. And I think that is what we want to build, that area of being a place where each one of us are able to bless the other person by being that person being accountable to them as coaches, right? And even as people around us as we go. So I think that's something that we always talk about. I think we can talk so much more about questions. I think as coaches, we can go like long topics, but different questions, how what question can help you in what situation, and Derry brought a growth model. So like in the goal setting side, what questions, all the different parts and way forward, what questions that we can do. But we don't have that much of time on this podcast. And I think one thing I think we realized as coaches is that I think this is something that we always ask each other and we always are able to, bless other people with. So once again, before we end our podcast, is there anything else as coaches, David and Ivy, you want to just give a tip or, like an encouragement to the viewers out there?
We have something that I was, when I was doing my training, I was termed as the queen of the above the line model. What it does is that when you have a negative thoughts or something that is below the line, for example, like this is not possible. When you proclaim that this is not possible, then things will not be possible. So instead of doing that, how you bring it up above the line is to ask the question, how can I make this possible? It changes you, it opens up your mind to be more creative. So I really like that as a way to encourage people forward. So this is a little tips from me, and I hope you're blessed with that.
I suppose for us, our daily lives is a search for something. We're looking forward, we're hopeful for something that will happen today or tomorrow. Then become aware of the questions that we are asking. By asking these set of questions, has it helped me to move forward? Am I becoming more open? Do I feel more powerful? Do I feel that my dreams are growing and enthusiasm is growing? Or do I see that as the week passes by, I'm seeing that I'm being sucked out of my energy and I'm becoming disempowered? Then maybe it has something to do with my search. And we want to then be aware of the kind of questions we're asking ourselves when we are approaching something new, or when we look back and reflect on the experiences that we have had. What are we asking? Are those questions helping myself, helping us? Or it is just locking me up and bringing me to a place that I actually do not want to go? Good questioning will always help us to move forward and help us to learn something powerful from that experiences.
Right, amazing, yes. I think one last thing for me would be just, I think having people who ask like these very good questions and help us think about it helps us move forward much faster. I think that's where we can move forward when we all begin the area of good questioning, and especially realizing that that's where I've experienced it in coaching, and coaching is always an option for each one of us. And that's where I also want to invite all of you, if any of you are, stuck or are trying to move forward and you find it a very hard way of moving forward, I will invite you to actually reach out to us, reach out to any of us here at Coaches, and we can actually just help you in that process, just give you that support that you need right now. So do not fear, do not be like, oh, like this is I don't know what to do. Reach out, and we as coaches will love to just support you with this journey, and also even ask you, and you experience that good questioning that that we talked about for yourself, for your personal life, for your own situations. Each question is very targeted towards where you are at and how you want to move forward in any particular area. So before we end, we also want to thank you all for continue watching our videos and supporting us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, but also not forgetting all our other social medias. We want to really get these videos out there to everyone out there so that people can be blessed by it. These small nuggets of conversation that we have right now, it is towards letting people hear it, people to experience powers of coaching, but what I also do is to take these nuggets and use it for their own self, and even for you to use it for your life right now. So before we end, we want to thank you all again for just being always there with us. I think you see our viewership is expanding. It's more and more people are liking and subscribing. I think this is what we can help, especially in this pandemic, help people out there to really thrive and really grow, especially in Malaysia. So thank you all once again. See you all in the next video. Bye.